For over 125 years, the name Ganella has meant freshly baked, delicious, crisp-crusted bread for food connoisseurs. And now, the same dough that generations of the Ganella family have perfected is available frozen, ready to come out of your in-store oven, perfectly baked every time. No matter how novice a baker you might be, the results will be glorious, crackly crusts and mouth-watering aromas to keep your customers coming back for more. This video will walk you through the basics of your equipment, the product you will be working with, and basic baking techniques that you will be able to continue to build on during your time as a baker. Along with the follow-up videos, we hope to leave you with a solid overview of the baking process, along with the knowledge to bake Ganella frozen product-specific breads and rolls. Let's get started. First, we'd like to help you learn more about your bakery. There are several pieces of equipment you will become very familiar with: the cooler, proof box, and oven, along with your racks and rack covers and different kinds of pans. Remember, all equipment is different, so you will need to adjust time and temperature accordingly. The cooler is also known as a retarder. It should be set at 36 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Putting the frozen dough in the cooler allows for it to thaw slowly overnight. This will enhance the flavor and appearance of the finished product. The proofer is a temperature and humidity controlled box that allows the dough to rise quicker than sitting out at room temperature. The heat helps activate the yeast, which is how the dough rises. The humidity helps keep the dough from drying out during this process. The proofer temperature should be set at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity should be set at 95%. After it is proofed, the dough is baked in the oven. When baking, set the time, temperature, and amount of steam you would like. The steam allows for the dough to expand when it is hit with the initial burst of heat and also helps form a nice crispy crust. Rack covers are used to cover the product so it does not dry out while it is thawing. A perforated or screen pan is the most commonly used pan. The holes allow air to flow freely, getting a nice even bake. A channel pan typically has 4 or 5 channels. This provides for a nice rounded bottom, great for long rolls and French bread. The strap pan creates a uniform loaf, which is great for sandwich breads. Now that you are comfortable with your space, let's review pertinent information provided on each case of Ganella frozen dough that your bakery receives. The product code number is what Ganella uses to refer to each individual product. The ingredient legend lists the ingredients used in each Ganella product. Frozen weight refers to the weight of each individual piece of dough. The case count is the total amount of frozen dough pieces in a case. Product codes are printed directly on each case of Ganella frozen dough and provide information as to when that case was produced. The production date is the date the product was produced. Production line number refers to the conveyor line number that produced that particular product. Case number is the exact case number produced during production of that particular product. Production facility code refers to the plant in which the frozen dough was produced. Lastly, production runtime is the exact time the product was produced. It is a good idea to check the best if used by date on each case of frozen dough. This will determine whether the product should be thrown away or broken out for baking. Here's a general overview of the baking process. Breakout is the term used for taking the frozen dough out of the freezer for the next day's bake. The most efficient way to do this is to have empty pans, pan liners, pan spray, and empty racks on hand. Pan liners should be labeled with a marker to avoid confusion. It's best to spray each pan liner with pan spray to prevent the dough from sticking once it's thawed. Begin by placing the desired amount of frozen dough on pans and transfer those pans to empty racks. Make sure the frozen dough is no more than 1 layer high and has enough pan space to properly thaw. The frozen dough slowly thaws overnight in a cooler or retarder. that is set at 36 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Most coolers use air movement as a means of cooling. This air movement will dry the surface of the product and will cause problems during proofing and baking. Placing a rack cover over the rack will prevent this from occurring. Retarding is an important step in preparing frozen dough. Allowing the dough pieces to slowly thaw for 8 to 12 hours helps improve the final product. The thawed dough will be ready for panning or setup when the baker arrives for work the next morning. Each product has a specific panning configuration that will optimize production and product quality. Refer to your specific store's panning instructions for each item. Once products are panned up and placed on a rack, the rack is ready to go into the proof box. Make sure large breads have enough space to proof between pans. The temperature of the proofer is usually maintained at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity is controlled at 95% to prevent drying or crusting of the dough. Since proofing is a time and temperature relationship, it's hard to determine exact proofing times. Normally, products are considered proofed when they expand about 2.5 times their original size. Under controlled conditions, it will take about 60 minutes for dough products to proof. This time may change based on weather and equipment. When a baked product does not have enough volume or feels heavy and tends to split, it is considered underproofed. When a baked product has too much volume and appears light and collapsed, it is considered overproofed. Make sure products are 2.5 times their original size. It's often best to check the proofer after 45 minutes and add time rather than overproof and have the product go flat. It's important for bakers to recognize by sight and touch when each product is fully proofed. Remove the dough from the proofer and give it some floor time, about 5 minutes. This floor time will slightly dry the product so that it's easier to score. Scoring means to make cuts on top of the dough. Scoring not only enhances the appearance of the breads and rolls, but also helps release trapped gases inside the dough during the bake. In order to get the best results, use a sharp serrated knife to score the proofed dough. Don't make a straight cut with the knife. Score the dough holding the knife at a 45-degree angle. The cuts should cover the full length of the dough piece, meaning the first cut starts at one end of the dough and the last cut finishes at the other end. The cuts should overlap by 1/3 of the length and run almost parallel to the dough piece. It's best to be consistent in length when making multiple cuts in a piece of dough. When the dough is scored, it's ready to go into the oven. Set your oven for temperature, time, and steam. When the oven has reached the desired temperature and the timer is set, open the oven door, put the rack in, close the door, and start the timer. When the timer goes off, check to ensure the bread is fully baked. Look for a golden brown and crispy crust. When the bread is fully baked, remove the rack from the oven. Let cool completely before packaging. If you notice condensation inside the bag, the product has not cooled enough for packaging. These are the basics of your bakery and your new baking skills. Continue on with the Ginella Bake Shop series to learn about specific products and techniques. If you have any questions, please call your Ginella sales representative.